Now that we have some theory, we have seen also some history. Let's check a little on the application of cryptography. Now, let's start with the authentication, also known as the symmetric key encryption. Well, let's go for the typical example of Alice and Bob that want to share their messages secretly without Eve to spying on them. Now, the idea here is that Bob and Alice changed a shared key via a secure communication channel. This way they can be assured of the message origin. So imagine that just Alice and Bob have this meeting on a cafe and they did change a key, a password that they can use in order to secure their communications. And for this to happen, it's all the way this works. So let's start first by looking into the values. So M goes for the plain text message. That's the message that they will change. And key A is for the authentication key. And then we have the message authentication code. And then we have the H for the MAC function. And the result of A, it's when we get the MAC function and insert the authentication key and also the plain text message. This will give the MAC code. Okay. So for Alice to proceed with the authentication, she has the plain text message and message authentication code. And that are the result from the MAC function with the authentication key and plain text inputs. Now Bob receives the plain text message and message authentication code, and in order for him to verify they are from Alice, he will run the authentication key and plain text on the MAC function to check if the values do match. If they do match, it's because they are from Alice. Well, if they don't match, it's because it's from Eve or somebody else, you never know. Nevertheless, all these functions and values generation do happen more or less automatically. Probably you already tried to connect to a SSH server and you noticed that there was this number and that asked for you to confirm if the key is valid. Well, that's the most practical example of this kind of authentication. So now for the next one, we have the famous public key encryption. So in this kind of encryption, each user has two keys. We have the public key that's known from everybody. Everybody knows the public key. And then we have the secret key that it's only known for the user. And at the moment the secret key is compromised, all the previous communications that were signed, they become like unsecret anymore. So it's really important to keep the secret key in a safe location. A message encrypted with one of the keys in the pair can only be decrypted with the other key. So if I encrypt a public key, now let's go for the practical example. So imagine that Alice sends Bob a message that's encrypted with the secret key that only Alice has the secret key, and then Bob will receive the message, and using the public key that's from Alice, he will unencrypt the message and will verify that the message does really come from Alice and it's all okay. Nevertheless, public key encryption is less efficient than the secret key encryption, and typically there's a combination of both types of encryption that is used. We have the public encryption that's used to establish and exchange the secret key, and then the secret key is used for encrypting the actual data. Okay, so this is also some generic overview on how the thing works. And if you don't get all the functions, I mean, don't worry, because the whole idea is that you just get the point of view. Now, Last but not the least, we have the digital signature. Well, it's the public key equivalent of message authentication codes. Well, in fact, it's what maybe you already seen when you receive this PDF, and there's this icon right on the bottom with the question mark on yellow that you click, and then you say, yes, it's verified. And that's the digital signatures. I mean, they are mostly used for that. They are not like, let's say, they are not really common, but nevertheless, it's important for them to be here, so you know that they exist. The whole idea behind of this chapter is that you don't need to know every function that we just saw, because even I don't know the functions by heart. So it's for you to have a broad idea on how the encryption thing works on the most used practice. Now that we have a basic understanding on how these attacks work, on how these methods and techniques works, we are going to do a quick peek on the type of attacks that we can perform on cryptography.